So we were talking about Beast Wars as a podcast about two comedians rewatching the 1990s TV series Beast Wars Transformers. Although we are discussing a children's television show, the podcast itself is not intended for children.
Hey, Andy?
Yeah, Phil?
Something weird's going on. I can't see the audience.
Oh my god, I can't see them either.
You can't see them either? I thought you were going to tell me where they were.
No. Where are they? They could be coming from anywhere.
How are we going to do a podcast to an audience we can't see? I'm freaking out. I don't want the audience to see me before I can see them.
Hey, yo, Phil, Andy, it's me, Apetimus Prime.
Apetimus?
Can you see me? I don't care. This is a podcast. It has always been an audio-exclusive medium.
It has?
Yeah. Have you ever seen an audience before?
Hey, Andy, he's right. I never have seen an audience before.
Oh man, that explains so much. Apetimus, this must be why when we record, you're never wearing pants, because you know the audience can't see you.
That's not why I'm not wearing pants.
But why are you not wearing pants?
Some bananas just gotta hang free.
I'm so glad we can't see right now.
So we were talking about Beast Wars.
We were talking about Beast Wars. I'm Phil Thomas.
I'm Andy Hunter. Thank you all for joining us. We are today discussing Beast Wars Season 1, Episode 20, Dark Voyage. Phil and I have referenced this a few times now. It's the one where they all went blind.
The one where they all went blind. After so many years, I can't believe we're actually going to podcast about this episode.
Yeah, so I'll describe my recollections of this episode, and Phil, you tell me if they match yours. During Season 1, it seemed like there would be breaks between new episodes, and then especially between Seasons 1 and 2. It just seemed like there was so long where we just had reruns. And I feel like every third episode or so, and I know it wasn't, but it felt like every third episode or so was the one where they all went blind.
Oh, absolutely. It felt like every other episode to me. There were two things at that time that really annoyed me as somebody trying to watch cartoons or kids programs after school. One was the Super Mario Brothers show, where Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they would have a little episode of a Mario Brothers cartoon, which I thought were terrible. But every Friday, there was a Legend of Zelda cartoon. And the Legend of Zelda cartoon was always, in my opinion, much better. There was one Friday where I had been waiting all week for the Legend of Zelda episode. And instead, you know what they did, Andy?
Oh man, tell me.
They replayed the Thursday episode. The episode that I had seen on Thursday, they replayed it again on Friday. I got so upset. I went to my dad and I explained the whole thing to him about how this was a travesty. He was just like, oh, really? Right? And I'm like, yeah. And then on Fridays, there's a Zelda cartoon and you only get to see so many of these cartoons. And they just reran the Thursday. I want you to call PHL 57 and complain to the manager and tell them that they need to send me a VHS of the Legend of Zelda episode. So that was cartoon trauma number one. Number two is this episode, the one where they all went blind. I've just seen it so many times. In fact, I had to watch this episode 4 to 5 times more than any other episode this season in my notes for this podcast. So, you know, just like the 90s.
You might wonder, listeners, well, if it came on and you'd already seen it and you were sick of it, why didn't you just turn it off and go do something else? We talked about a few episodes ago the idea of when we were young and in a toy store and we had acquired a toy's worth of money. Even if the Beast Wars character we wanted wasn't there. We wanted to walk out of that store with a toy. And so that's how we wind up with all kinds of characters who were never in the show. It was the same thing for us when we were kids watching cartoons. It was like, well, I want to watch some kind of cartoon. I want to watch Beast Wars. And if it's this episode I've seen 4 times already, I guess I'll fucking watch it a 5th time. What else am I going to do? Enjoy the outside? Interact with another of the human beings who live in my house? Homework? Fuck all of that.
Absolutely. Also, it was the 90s. There kind of was nothing else to do.
Yeah, dog, there was no streaming. It was linear TV only.
That's right. There was nothing to scroll. If I wanted to contact Andy, I would have to call him. Like, if I was watching an episode of a TV show and I wanted to talk to Andy about it, right now we could text each other while the show is happening. I would have to wait till the episode was over and go to the rotary phone in the first floor of my house and call Andy and just be like, would you like to have a conversation about this episode?
Yeah. And what would happen is often one of the other people in your family would pick up the phone and you'd have to say, oh, hi, my name's Andy. May I please speak with Philip?
But what will you talk about?
Healthy things like sports and mathematics.
You're not going to talk about Beast Wars?
Oh man, I wish our theme song were just a recording of your mom saying, so they were talking about Beast Wars again.
Oh my goodness. They always talk about Beast Wars. Andy, he calls and they don't talk about anything else. How long can they go all day talking about the Beast Wars? Apparently, we can go for decades.
Yeah. Also, before we move on, I'm sure some listeners have already flagged this. You want to know who the showrunner of the Legend of Zelda cartoon was, Phil?
Who was that?
Bob Forward, the co-story editor of Beast Wars.
No way.
Yeah.
Can I complain to him about this? Like, did...
All right, so Dark Voyage. Rhinox, Rat Trap, Dinobot, and Cheetor are all blinded and damaged by an energon explosion and have to rely on their other senses to make it back to the base. This episode was written by Samuel Warren Joseph and directed by Steve Ball. This is the only episode of this show that Samuel Warren Joseph wrote. He also wrote 1 episode of Batman the Animated Series. Fear of Victory, it was the one where the Scarecrow was mailing athletes letters that were coated in like fear powder so that it would get absorbed into their skin. And he wrote apparently 65 episodes of Dennis the Menace.
That makes a lot of sense because that cartoon was annoying and this episode was annoying too.
Yeah, Steve Ball, in addition to directing a few episodes of this show, he was also a supervising animator on the show, as well as an animator and director on one of Mainframe's other shows, Reboot.
Reboot, great show.
Yeah, and as far as your comment just now, this was an annoying episode, I'm going to say more than half of my annoyance with this episode was just that it seemed to come on so often. Otherwise, it's a perfectly fine episode. But yeah, if not for it somehow showing up in the rotation so much, I think I would barely remember it.
So I agree there. If it weren't for the fact that they ran it so many times, I wouldn't remember this very much. That having been said, I feel like the purpose, or one of the purposes this episode serves, is like a going against type episode to change things up. What if we spent a whole episode where Apetimus is doing the pitch for this episode? All right, guys. Now, shut up. I've got a great idea. It's better than everybody else's idea. You want to hear it? Okay. What if there were a whole episode where nobody transforms into robot mode, huh? Yeah. Think about it. Use your noodle. So, like, to run the change of pace episode 30 times in the span of 3 months, that's where you're just like, okay, well, now it's just kind of annoying that I have to see so many episodes where they're barely in robot mode.
Yeah, also, I will point out, the last episode was Call of the Wild, where they also had to spend most of the episode in beast mode. And at the end of the episode, when Rhinox is like, one nice thing is we learned what we're capable of in beast mode. I was like, motherfucker, you learned that last week.
That's a good point. Another thing I noticed towards the end of this, maybe it's worth mentioning now, Air Razor does not make an appearance. And Dinobot has some real rough edges in this episode. I wonder if it was originally intended to air much earlier in the season. Is Black Arachnia in this episode either?
Black Arachnia's not in this episode. Air Razor is mentioned, though. She's not in it, but she is mentioned. Because Optimus at one point tells Tigatron, hey, if you find them, send a message to Air Razor because I have her searching Bravo Sector or whatever.
Okay. If my theory were true, they might be able to add that in later. But you're right, they do mention Air Razor.
Yeah, but also, I mean, again, this is the only episode of this series credited to Samuel Warren Joseph. I don't know if there was a writer's room on Beast Wars, and if so, I don't know if he was part of it or if this was purely a freelance job. But if he was kind of outside the main staff, I think that might also explain. Like, he was given the series Bible, not necessarily like the status quo of all the characters at this exact point in the show. That might also be a reason that Dinobot is so kind of extra prickly.
That actually makes a lot of sense, that this writer, since it's their only episode, kind of had to envision it as potentially going in a variety of different places in the season. And then this is where it ended up.
Yeah. Anyway, we start with Rat Trap, Cheetor, Rhinox, and Dinobot are collecting some energon to power, I think it was a quantum scanner. They never really get around to explaining what that is, what purpose it will be used for. I don't know, maybe in a later episode we'll see a quantum scanner show up. I'm not sure.
That's funny. I noticed that too. And there's a theme in this episode, once again, that shows the information superiority that the Predacons have. They just have so much more access to scanning and being able to see stuff and plot stuff out. So maybe this is the piece of technology that's finally going to help the Maximals close the gap.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, they are digging for Energon. Rat Trap is digging for Energon by hand in beast mode, which I thought was so weird because he has then like a claw machine grabber to pick it up when he does find it. And they've got a backpack that Cheetor is wearing in beast mode to carry the Energon. But they didn't bring shovels for the actual digging. They're just having to dig by hand. I thought that was very unusual.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. There's a rack of superfluous shields in the command center, but there's no like toolbox of shovels.
Yeah. Rat Trap says he has a nose for Energon because he used to be the best miner in the Vespa system. And I presume for that job they also didn't bring shovels, but probably did have plenty of motorized scooters.
Ah, I see what you did there. Very clever.
Dinobot thinks that mining for Energon is a waste of his talents, but he's nonetheless still excited when he does find some. But what he finds is a visibly exposed vein of Energon that leads to an entire like valley of Energon. And it's very funny to me that he needed his scanner because it seems like he looks up from his scanner and there's the trail of Energon.
Yeah, maybe don't think so highly of yourself.
Yeah.
Waspinator and Scorponok show up.
They shoot a missile at the Energon. Rhinox is able to dislodge the missile and chuck it, but it seems like its vibrations have nonetheless agitated the Energon enough to ignite it and make it explode. I would have loved to hear the whole conversation that Scorponok later has with Megatron, because Waspinator and Scorponok are like, yep, they definitely couldn't have survived that. Let's leave right away and tell Megatron. Even though a couple episodes ago in The Trigger, Waspinator and Pterosaur did know that they should look for Tigatron's body, so I guess Pterosaur's the brains of that pair. But I also would have expected Megatron to be like, wait, why didn't you try to get rid of the Maximals without destroying an entire valley of Energon that we could have then harvested for ourselves? Why was Plan A blow up a lot of perfectly good Energon? Either Scorponok just didn't tell Megatron that part of the story, or Megatron was perfectly cool with the way things transpired.
I do actually want to hear that conversation now. This is Megatron. Scorponok, what do you have to report?
I shot a missile into the Energon, and it blew up and they're definitely dead. Because of the missile!
Yes, a missile. I intuited that because I saw that you were calling. What happened with the Maximals? Did their body parts fly into a million pieces? I really hope you saw that.
It was Waspinator's fault. Click.
Did you just hang up on me? Ah, yes.
A couple other notes about the scene. First of all, the Maximals can tell the Energon has been agitated and is about to explode. But for some reason, they all just stand there and transform into robot mode, rather than any of them ducking for cover, taking a step back.
I had that observation too. Instead of Rhinox jumping down and trying to dislodge it, if they had all just run away, I think they would have fared a lot better, right?
One would presume, because Scorponok and Waspinator were like 20 feet away, and they were untouched by the blast. So, yeah, I would imagine the Maximals could have run 20 feet in that. Certainly Cheetor could have.
Oh, yeah. It feels like nobody acquitted themselves really well in this episode.
And then also, the explosion is clearly video of a regular special effects explosion rather than a CGI explosion. And I don't think it blended well. It, to me, stood out very obviously.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a whole retcon in my mind of how that happened. Like, I was the animator where I was like, hey, just to get the preview to you, I just substituted in a real explosion from now that I got from Die Hard. And once the episode's ready to air, I'll make sure to have that animation ready. And then later, it's like, never got around to that animation. You cool with this clip from Die Hard? It's like, yeah, it's fine. Just air it.
So, like we said, Waspinator and Scorponok just leave. And then we see Dinobot, Rattrap, Cheetor, and Rhinox all waking up. They're covered by some rocks, but they get out pretty easily. But they're blind. I mean, they're damaged in general. They've got Energon poisoning, basically. But the big thing that they're freaking out about is that they're blind. Which, honestly, though, I would say after that explosion, they got off lucky, because being blinded and slowly succumbing to that Energon poisoning does give them the chance to hang on and make it most of the way back to base. I would have expected with an explosion like that, all their limbs would have been blown off, and then they'd been stuck there like, oh, well, I guess I just have to slowly die from Energon poisoning.
Yeah, I mean, don't you think the first thing they should have presumed is that maybe they were dead and in purgatory?
That's interesting. We don't really, I think all we ever really hear about the Transformers afterlife is that the sparks return to the Matrix. And so I guess presumably Transformers don't really know what, if anything, those sparks then experience. So yeah, there could be like, oh man, who knew that returning to the Matrix was like a shittier version of the life I was living when I died.
Still have to listen to all the same annoying comments from your friends.
Yes. So Rhinox has to like talk them down because they're all freaking out. They've got to make it back to base or eventually the Energon poisoning will be fatal. They don't even try calling anyone for help. I guess they just can tell this time that their comms are fried.
Yeah, I just don't know about this episode. There's just a lot of plot holes. One thing I noticed was, at first I thought another mistake was that after they got blasted, Cheetor's face was white. Did you notice that?
Is his whole face white? I mean, they've all got light gray and black scorch marks on them. I don't remember his whole face being white. Is it white the whole episode or just for a scene or something?
I think it's like an effect of the blast. Like his eyes didn't just go white or silver. His like entire face went silver. And I thought that was really weird. And was that intentional? Because nobody else is. You know, Rattrap has this weird light that emanates from like his eyes and his nostrils and his mouth.
Yeah, it very much looks like his head is hollow with just a sphere of red light inside.
And by the way, we have not spent nearly enough time talking about how weird that is.
Yeah.
But his entire interior headlight,
yeah,
it just went white. So like he had white nostrils, he had a white mouth, he had that white under chin.
Yeah.
Light too, although at certain points it went red by mistake. Yeah, it was a hard episode to watch.
But Rhinox is like, we've got other senses, let's use them. He's leading them on the way. They are in a swamp. I would have thought that at the very least, Cheetor or Rattrap would probably have a better sense of smell than Rhinox. A cheetah being a predator, rats we know are very drawn by the smell of food and stuff. I wondered about Dinobot. I mean, I guess we don't really exactly know what a velociraptor's sense of smell is. Since dinosaurs ended up becoming birds, I wonder if they were more visually driven than smell driven. But it just seemed weird that we've got the rhino out in front.
That's a good point. I guess if I had to rank them by sense of smell, best to worst, I would go Rat Trap, Dinobot, Cheetor, and then Rhinox at the end. I guess the thing there was that he was the only one who bothered to try to rely on his sense of smell.
Yeah. So they are in the jungle. Rhinox senses that something is nearby, and he's carefully listening. But then when he identifies the source, he just says, "There!" He's getting used to himself being blind, but I guess clearly he's not used to communicating with other blind people because they can't see where you're pointing when you just say, "There."
Yeah, I guess he was just announcing, I have an idea of where it is, and maybe I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah. So it's a big boa constrictor-ish thing, and it wraps around Cheetor. He says he can't breathe, so we're once again in the realm of uncertainty over to what extent they need to breathe while they're in their beast modes. I've typically assumed that they use oxygen a bit, but not that they would die if they couldn't breathe. But who knows? I mean, they're also already pretty fucked up, so it might just take a little bit of smothering that would do the rest of the job.
Yeah, I noticed that was weird too. If you wanted to make an excuse for it, you could say kind of what you were alluding to, that their robot systems usually take over, but then when they're compromised, they actually kick into some biological processes to help restore and repair their robot modes. So when they're relying on those subsystems, if they get strangled, now the whole system's going to go down.
Yeah. Another thing I thought of is clearly Cheetor seems enough like a meaty, fleshy animal that it's worth it to the snake to attack it. Because, I presume a snake is not going to attack a car driving through the jungle or something. The snake only wants to attack something it can eat. And it seems weird that, because the other cheetahs who saw Cheetor immediately were like, this is not a real cheetah. Let's get the hell out of here. And I would think especially right now, while they're all like leaking energon and charred and stuff, I would assume they would smell even less like real animals than usual. But this is just not a very picky snake, I guess.
Yeah, I actually wrote down some weird observations about this encounter. Would a boa constrictor really take on this many big targets at once? Or is it only doing that because on some level it can sense that they're blind?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and also by that point, it is odd that it went after Cheetor rather than Rat Trap, since Cheetor is a bit bigger than Rat Trap.
I think it's obvious. The boa was talking to Tarantulas one day, and Tarantulas was like, I tried to suck this one cheetah. It was about to be really great, but he got away. And then the boa constrictor was like, Cheetor, eh? Well, I wrote down in my notes, why does everybody want to suck Cheetor? He's like the one ring. You come upon him, you're just like overcome.
So we were talking about Beast Wars. So the snake is strangling Cheetor. Dinobot totally panics and just runs into a tree. Rat Trap does follow his ears and makes it to Cheetor, but then he also gets beat up by the snake. Finally, Rhinox is able to grab the snake and toss it far away, where we then hear an elephant reacting to the snake landing. So do you think the elephant was like, I'm being attacked by a snake? Or do you think it was, I'm killing this snake now? I'd rather believe that Rhinox didn't just doom an elephant to the fate that they were about to suffer. But what do you think?
Oh, I thought that was clearly an elephant going, what the fuck?
So Cheetor is even more messed up after this fight. He has to be carried. Dinobot, of course, suggests that they leave him. But here's something I wondered. By now, Dinobot has shown loyalty to compromised comrades. So do you think he, at this point, is only suggesting that course of action of abandoning Cheetor because he knows it's expected of him, but he actually secretly wants to get shot down? Or do you think it's just like, I respect Optimus, but Cheetor, I can take or leave him?
I mean, what I believe is the least interesting answer, which is that this was written to be episode 2 or 3 of the series, where like just none of that had been established yet.
Wow, that makes sense too. We cut back to the Axelon, where Optimus is directing Tigatron to do the search.
When Rhinox says Maximals don't abandon their own, They immediately cut to Tigatron. Oh, they don't? Oh, cut to the guy who has abandoned everyone for virtually every episode.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think of it because, he is there when they need him. And actually, Tigatron has been in more episodes than I had remembered, given that I remembered him being the guy who preferred to be out alone in nature. But yeah, it is true that he's certainly more antisocial than the rest of them.
That's true. But I just thought there was a little bit of irony at that point. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on Megatron's orders, Waspinator and Scorponok have returned to the site of the explosion, and they spot the Energon trail, so they know the Maximals are still alive. Waspinator catches up to them while they are crossing a fallen log as like a bridge over a waterfall. He shoots the log, making them all fall. And this time he does know, okay, I need to go salvage their bodies to prove to Megatron that they're dead. The Maximals manage to make it to shore, with Dinobot especially just about ready to give up. What a terrible fate that me, a great warrior, should die blind and wet and weak. But Rhinox is like, don't be a little bitch. Waspinator and Pterosaur are now showing up, and Rhinox is like, picture a targeting grid in your mind, and I'll listen out, and I'll tell you where to aim. But they're all blind. How do they know that, like, when Rhinox says grid A, that where Rhinox is picturing that isn't necessarily where Dinobot is picturing that is, or where Rat Trap is? To me, it would make much more sense if they all huddled around Rhinox. And Rhinox is like, all right, Cheetor, you're 12 o'clock, Rat Trap, you're 3 o'clock, Dinobot, you're 9 o'clock. Just to, like, orient them for where they're starting. But, well, nonetheless, it works. He, in Rhino form, sits in, like, a yogi or a Buddha pose, which was super awkward. Maybe, like, another instance of, was this episode originally made to come earlier when they were still kind of doing, like, sometimes in Rhino form, Rhinox can do stuff that rhinoceroses actually can't.
Yeah, there's some kind of storyline where, like, Rhinox can do this when he either aligns his chakras or avails himself in Rhino form of the Akashic records that are somehow permeating through. There's a little bit of a mumbo-jumbo aspect there that I don't think entirely checks out.
Yeah. And I think in this scene, we're meant to feel like the mist from the waterfall is limiting Waspinator and Pterosaur's ability to see. So thus they're sort of actually on equal footing with the blinded Maximals. But I think the episode could have done a better job hammering that.
I didn't even put together that was, like, now that you mention it, it seems obvious to me, but I just actually never put together that was intended to be the case.
Yeah, because it's not really consistently obvious how misty it is. Like, when we're at the close-ups of the Maximals, it doesn't really look very misty or foggy. It's only when we're with Waspinator and Pterosaur. There are points where there's, like, no background at all. It's just plain white background. And I didn't put it together until really late in that sequence. You see Waspinator sort of, like, emerging from a cloud of mist or something and then getting shot. But yeah, I think the episode could have done a better job establishing that.
Okay, that makes much more sense because in the beginning of the episode, the Predacons have the high ground because they can see everything and they're calling the shots, and that's why they blow everybody up. And then, so the parity or the balance is at the end of the episode. Now, the Maximals have the high ground because they're blind.
Yeah. But anyway, the good guys win. Tigatron hears the gunshots and alerts Optimus, who arrives. By now, all the good guys have fainted and gone into stasis lock. And then Optimus sends a Code X to Tigatron, which, like, does that mean, like, bring the helicopter? Because I don't think Optimus could carry all 4 of these guys back to base. Certainly not in one trip. Hopefully they're only, like, 3 minutes away from base, because it seemed like they were really close to just when they were going to die anyway.
Yeah, that's funny. They could have actually been really close to base and not known about it. If you think back to the Victory episode, Optimus did single-handedly keep the Axelon from crashing into the Earth. So I think he could get all 4 of them back to base in one carry, but he would have to balance them the way you would balance 4 bowls when you, like, get them out of the dishwasher and you're trying to put them back on the shelf.
Or maybe Code X is bring me the biggest canvas bag we have because I'm just going to put all of them in it and then it won't be awkward for me to carry them.
Do you have one of those blue IKEA bags that for some reason you stole from IKEA last time we were there?
Sometime later, we're back at base. Rhinox is getting out of the CR chamber. The other three are recovered. I wonder how many CR chambers are in the Axelon.
I wrote that down verbatim. How many CR chambers are there? Can they res everyone at the same time? Did they have to go one at a time? Who went first? Maybe Dinobot went last because they hate him.
Clearly, Rhinox wakes up last. And so I thought if they were having to stagger it, maybe Rhinox went last because he was the least damaged, because he went into stasis lock a couple seconds later than the other three did. But yeah, I don't know. Because there have also been other times where characters have had to have more manual repairs done. Like when Scorponok blasted that hole in Cheetor, he woke up on a table. And likewise in Guerrilla Warfare, Optimus woke up in his room. At the time I said, oh, maybe it's because he blasted his way out of the CR chamber. And they had to put the CR chamber in the other CR chamber to fix it before they could fix anybody else.
Picturing one CR chamber waking up inside another.
They're all like, hey, thanks, Rhinox. You saved our bacon. Dinobot's like, meh, yeah, I guess whatever. Which also seems, very much more like early Dinobot, because I feel like at this point in the show, Dinobot is much more willing to say something like, either I'm in your debt or you performed honorably, something like that.
Yeah, I agree. It seemed out of character for this point in the season.
Yeah. Like I said, Rhinox says it was a good experience because now they know what they're capable of in beast mode. Except they also just learned that last episode. In what was, I feel like, a far more interesting episode.
We've got a lot of pent-up bitterness about this episode.
Yeah. Anyway, listeners, I hope you're ready because once we reach the end of season 1, we're just going to drop this episode in the feed again, like another 30 or 40 times before we move on to season 2. So just so you really understand where we're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. There's only one way to experience this the way we did.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, not our favorite.
It does mark a milestone that we did this episode of the podcast, though.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else before we move on to Beast Wars Bingo?
I think I had a couple of thoughts here and there, just like random tidbits from the episode. The pack that is on Cheetor's back in the beginning of the episode that they're going to put samples in.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I thought it was evocative and maybe foreshadowing of Cheetor's transmetal mode because of the wings that fold up and down into it. Like they have those hinges and stuff. And then in robot mode, he has kind of like a backpack.
Yes.
It was a stretch, but for some reason, I was just like, oh, that was interesting. When I was trying to figure out maximize versus terrorize, one of the things I did notice about this episode is that beast mode is said a lot. That got me thinking. Do people realize that the popularity of beast mode as like a meme and going on t-shirts and that NFL player Marshawn Lynch taking on the beast mode nickname, do people actually realize that that is from Beast Wars?
I don't know. I think I once looked it up on Urban Dictionary or Know Your Meme or something, and there was a reference to Beast Wars, but also not like, this definitely came from Beast Wars, but I think it was like, this refers to really going all out or something. Also, it was used in Beast Wars. So I don't know for sure if it actually did come from Beast Wars or if it just happens to be, because in Beast Wars, when the characters go into beast mode, that's not when they're like, oh man, it's hard to beat him now. Whereas in popular culture, when people say, oh man, he went into beast mode, it meant he got more badass. So yeah, if it did come from Beast Wars, it would actually kind of be an inversion of the way Beast Wars treats robot mode versus beast mode.
So I completely agree with that context. I do feel like when beast mode is said, it is very often said enthusiastically. So when you hear that, just kind of in the periphery or the background of people just saying beast mode enthusiastically. I personally refuse to believe that on some level that did not promulgate from beast mode being said so often on Beast Wars.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And I feel like certainly the timeline kind of works out. You've got like 15 to 20 years later, nostalgia is hitting, or like people who were kids are then now more the cultural influencer age. So yeah, could be. Hey, listeners, if you're the person who made beast mode popular in the zeitgeist, let us know and we'll have you on the show.
Man, that would be great if one of those people was listening.
Mm-hmm.
When Rat Trap started crossing the log, my fingers started hovering over the keys on my keyboard to start typing out hanging precariously. And I assumed that Codex meant everybody is dead. Dinobot's blind, but his eye lasers still work. And I was like, what are the mechanics there?
Yeah, I assumed, since they were blind in both beast mode and robot mode, I assumed that it was actually their robot equivalent of their optic nerve was damaged as opposed to their eyes themselves. So then I got like, all right, well, yeah, I guess the eye itself is functioning fine. It's just the data is not getting to their brain. So I guess the eye laser is also functioning fine. That was how I justified that.
That's believable. I should have worked that into inconsistent weapon power. Just one last point about Pterosaur won't believe that the Maximals are dead until he sees it. Megatron won't believe that the Maximals are dead until he sees it. Waspinator has an infrared sensor so he can see Energon signatures on the ground. Megatron has the ability to see on camera and visualize the Energon forms of the Maximals walking along. Tarantulas sees it. There's just like this overwhelming narrative of just how well equipped the Predacons are to be able to observe the Maximals, coupled with just how lazy it makes them to finish the Maximals off or validate that they're dead. Meanwhile, the fact that the Maximals were pushed so hard to be resourceful, that was what won them today.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it took me a while to get there, but I finally did. Maybe I'll stop hating this episode. Would you like to play some games?
Yeah, let's go for Beast Wars Bingo.
All right. So Beast Wars Bingo moments. There was no bullet train, although I assumed there would be a hanging precariously moment. Nobody officially hung precariously, although there was a moment where all four of them were about to fall off a log.
Yeah, but it's true. This time it was much more binary. It's either on the log or off the log. They did not have that transition period of hanging from the log.
That is correct, even though I was really anticipating it. There was no animal looking to the sky, the way we anticipate when something is entering the atmosphere. There was no Optimus body horror moment, but everybody else had a body horror moment. Inconsistent weapon power, you could put, for some reason, Dinobot's eye laser's still working even though he's blind. And, Andy, I am on the verge of adding a new bingo box to the Beast Wars Bingo moments. Mm-hmm. And that is character prematurely presumed to be dead.
Yeah, it does happen. Go for it.
Okay, that's in. I wish I had put it in earlier in the season because, you know, we would have gotten a few more check marks. I'm also putting in another category to Beast Wars Bingo. This is Fiancé Corner.
Oh, okay.
The Fiancé Corner notes were, number 1, Dinobot is especially annoying this episode.
Yeah.
And 2, I'm surprised the Maximals do not have a way to track each other.
Yeah, it seems, I feel like often they do, or at least when they're in their like scanner range, but maybe this time either, I guess they were out of their scanner range or they were just so messed up that their like transponder signals were down or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it is a recurring theme though.
Yeah.
Okay, how many times do you think maximize was said?
Let's see. I'm going to guess twice. I think it's Rhinox in the beginning when he tossed the missile away. And then I think maybe just again Rhinox at the end when Optimus shows up. And I don't remember if any of the others said maximize any of the times that they transformed. So I'm going to guess it's just those 2.
Okay, that's really good, Andy. It's actually 3, but...
Wait, was Tigatron the 3rd?
Yes, it was!
Wow.
Very good! Wow. And at what point does Tigatron say that?
That's when he hears the gunshots, right? And he calls Optimus, I think.
Right. You nailed all 3. Very good.
Well, I just finished watching the episode an hour ago, so it's fresher in my mind than it usually is.
And also prior to that, you had seen it 90 times.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
How many times do you think terrorize was said in the episode?
I'm going to guess maybe just once. Maybe Waspinator says it when he starts scanning the ground. So yeah, once is my guess.
This is one of the reasons I had to watch this episode so many times over again to confirm. I don't think terrorize is ever said in the episode.
Oh, okay.
So in the episode where the Maximals spend 90% of it in beast mode, terrorize is never said.
It really makes you think.
It really makes you think about the one
where they all went blind. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and please spread the word to other people who you think might enjoy it. You can reach out to us at beastwarstalk@gmail.com, and especially if you have a question for Apetimus, and he'll answer it on the show. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time, I'm Andy Hunter.
I'm Phil Thomas.
And now we have talked about the one where they all went blind.